The cold steel of the dropship hummed beneath Captain Isaac Carter as he fastened his harness. Outside the small viewport, the alien world of Sci-Fi stretched far and wide, covered in thick jungles and massive hive-like structures that jutted from the ground like ancient towers. The planet had been marked as a red zone, dangerous, uncharted, and possibly hostile. But humanity needed resources, and scouting teams had detected strange energy signatures from this world. That's why Isaac and his crew were here. "Captain, we're approaching drop point," Lieutenant Simmer Khan said over the comms. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Everyone on board knew how dangerous first contact could be. Isaac looked around at his squad. Sergeant Kelly, their weapons expert, was double-checking her rifle. Dr. Evelyn Ross, the mission scientist, was nervously adjusting her scanners. The two pilots in the cockpit, Jin Wu and Marco Vasquez, were preparing for descent. "All right, people," Isaac said, standing up. "We go in, collect data, and get out. No unnecessary risks. If the locals are hostile, we fall back." "Understood." A chorus of "Yes, sir," filled the ship. Touchdown on an alien world. The dropship descended through the thick atmosphere, the turbulence shaking them violently. As they broke through the clouds, the landscape became clearer. Towering organic structures pulsed with an eerie blue glow. The terrain was uneven, and strange insect-like creatures skittered across the ground, moving in unison like a single entity. Isaac tightened his grip on his rifle. Something about this place felt wrong. The dropship landed on a small clearing, its thrusters burning the alien grass into blackened dust. The ramp lowered, and the squad moved out, weapons at the ready. "Khan, Ross, take readings. Kelly, keep an eye on movement," Isaac ordered. Evelyn activated her scanner, her brows furrowing. "Captain, I'm detecting structures beneath the surface. There's an entire network of tunnels under us." Before Isaac could respond, the ground shook violently. A loud, hissing sound echoed through the jungle, followed by rapid movement. From the shadows of the alien towers, they emerged. Ambush. The Zykari attack. The creatures were massive, standing on 4 legs with 2 additional clawed arms. Their exoskeletons gleamed black, their eyes a deep crimson, and their mouths were filled with razor-sharp mandibles. They moved like trained soldiers, circling the squad within seconds. "Weapons free. Fire!" Isaac yelled. Bullets tore through the air, striking the alien creatures, but their armor was thick. Some went down, greenish blood spraying the ground, but more kept coming. One of the creatures lunged at Samir, knocking him to the ground. Isaac turned and fired a burst into its head, but another alien grabbed Kelly, its claws piercing her armor. She screamed in pain as it dragged her towards a tunnel entrance. "Kelly, no." Isaac sprinted after her, but the ground suddenly collapsed beneath him. Everything turned dark as he fell into the depths of the hive. Captured by the hive. Isaac's head throbbed as he woke up. His hands were bound by a strange organic material, and the air was thick with a pungent scent. The walls around him were not made of rock, but a living, breathing structure. A deep hum vibrated through the hive, like a massive organism breathing in sync. He wasn't alone. Other humans, prisoners, were stuck in similar bindings, some unconscious, others too weak to move. A shadow loomed over him. A tall figure stepped forward. This was no ordinary Zykari warrior. This was their queen. Her form was more humanoid than her soldiers, though still undeniably alien. Her exoskeleton was deep violet, her 4 glowing eyes intelligent, calculating. She radiated an aura of dominance, yet there was something different about her compared to the others. She studied him for a long moment before speaking in a deep, almost melodic voice. "Human, I have waited for you." Isaac's breath caught in his throat. The queen spoke his language. "Who are you? What do you want?" he demanded. She stepped closer, and her long, clawed fingers brushed against his chest as if inspecting him. Then, with a voice filled with something close to joy, she whispered, "I carry your child." The words echoed in Captain Isaac Carter's mind like a thunderclap. "I carry your child." He stared at the Zycari queen, his heart pounding. His body was still weak from the fall, but his mind raced. This had to be some kind of trick, some kind of alien deception. What did you just say?" Isaac finally forced the words out. The queen's glowing violet eyes studied him carefully. She stood tall, her insectoid exoskeleton shimmering under the dim organic light of the hive. Unlike the other Zycari warriors he had fought, she had an aura of intelligence, grace, and something else, something unsettlingly familiar. She slowly stepped forward, her clawed fingers trailing across the living walls of the chamber. "You heard me, human," she said in her deep, melodic voice. "I carry your child, the first of its kind, the future of both our species." Isaac clenched his jaw. He wasn't sure what terrified him more, the fact that she spoke English so fluently or the insane claim she had just made. "That's impossible," he said, shaking his head. "I've never even seen your kind before today, let alone." He stopped himself before finishing the sentence. This was insane. The queen gave a slow, knowing smile, or at least the Zycari version of one. Her mandibles shifted slightly, and her upper lip curled in an eerie display of amusement. "Your kind always believes only what they can see," she said, "but life is not so simple." A strange truth. Isaac struggled against the organic restraints holding him, but they were as solid as steel. Around him, the hive pulsed, its walls alive, moving with a rhythm that felt disturbingly like a heartbeat. "You're lying," he growled. "This is some kind of mind trick, a psychological tactic to break me." The queen's amusement faded. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering something. Then she raised one of her clawed hands, and a small orb-like device embedded in the hive's wall began to glow. A holographic projection flickered to life between them. Isaac's breath caught in his throat. The image showed something he could barely comprehend. A Zycari embryo. But it wasn't fully Zycari. It had human-like features, a smaller exoskeleton, soft skin beneath the carapace, and most disturbingly of all, eyes that were unmistakably human. Isaac's stomach twisted. "How?" he whispered. "The experiment." The queen stepped closer, her movements graceful, controlled. "Your people do not know," she said, "but long before today, the Zycari have been watching you." Isaac's blood ran cold. The queen continued, her voice calm, but filled with a strange sense of urgency. "Our species is dying, human," she admitted. "For thousands of years, the Zycari have ruled the void, undefeated, unchallenged. But we have reached our limit. Our genetic structure is failing." Isaac stared at her, his mind racing. "You mean you can't reproduce?" he asked. The queen gave a slow nod. "Not in the way we once could. Each new generation grows weaker. Our hive mind fractures. The end of our species is near." She gestured to the holographic embryo, her eyes burning with intensity. "We needed a new path," she said, "a way to evolve. And then we discovered you." Isaac's hands curled into fists. "You're saying you used my DNA?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "Not just yours," the queen replied. "Your kind's." Isaac's chest tightened. His mind raced back to the disappearances, the countless humans who had vanished from deep space colonies, never to be seen again. The hive's secret. Isaac's breathing grew heavier. "You abducted humans," he realized. "You experimented on us." The queen did not deny it. "Survival demands sacrifice," she said, her voice devoid of guilt. "We needed a species that could merge with ours, one strong enough to ensure the future." Isaac felt rage boiling inside him. "You had no right," he shouted. The queen did not flinch. Instead, she reached out and placed one of her clawed hands gently on his chest. Isaac's first instinct was to recoil, but something stopped him. A strange warmth spread through him. Not pain, not fear, something else, something familiar. His breathing slowed. His mind grew hazy. A memory surfaced. A dream? No, a vision. A deep, endless void. A heartbeat, his own, but not alone. A presence, watching, waiting. A connection. His eyes snapped open. The Queen was still standing before him, but now he could feel her presence inside his mind. A new kind of war. Isaac ripped himself away from her touch, his breathing ragged. What the hell was that? He demanded. The Queen watched him, her eyes filled with something close to sadness. The bond, she said simply. It is already forming. Isaac's heart pounded. He didn't understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. This was bigger than just him. And then, the chamber trembled. A deep guttural roar echoed through the hive. The ground shook. The walls vibrated. The Queen's calm expression shifted into something Isaac had not yet seen on her face. Fear. She turned toward the entrance just as a massive explosion rocked the hive. No, she whispered. Isaac strained against his bonds. What's happening? Before the Queen could answer, a HFY warrior stumbled into the chamber, its carapace cracked, greenish blood dripping from its body. My Queen, the warrior gasped. The traitors, they are here. Isaac's mind spun. Traitors. The Queen's mandibles tightened. Her glowing eyes flickered with rage. She turned to Isaac. You must choose now, human. Fight with me, or die with them. Captain Isaac Carter felt his heart pound as the walls of the hive shook violently. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the tunnels, followed by distant screams. The air smelled of burning flesh and alien blood, and the ground beneath him trembled like a living thing in agony. The HFY Queen, Vashera, stood tall, her glowing violet eyes flickering with a mixture of anger and urgency. The warrior beside her, bleeding from a deep wound in his exoskeleton, gasped out his warning. The traitors, they are here. Isaac struggled against his restraints. His mind raced. Traitors. Who? Another alien faction. More of these creatures. Before he could ask, another explosion shook the chamber. The walls split open, and through the widening cracks, Isaac saw movement. Shadows shifting in the flickering blue glow of the hive's organic lights. Then they emerge, a horde of HFY warriors, their exoskeletons darker than the rest, their glowing red eyes filled with nothing but fury. Their weapons, long serrated blades attached to their arms, dripped with greenish HFY blood. Isaac realized with a sickening jolt, these creatures weren't just attacking the hive. They were slaughtering their own kind. The betrayal of the hive. Vashera's mandibles clicked in a sharp, angry sound. She turned to Isaac, her voice urgent. You must choose now, human. Fight with me, or die with them. Isaac hesitated. His training told him never to trust an alien species, especially one that had captured him. But something about the look in Vashera's eyes. It wasn't just desperation. It was something else. Something human. Before he could decide, one of the traitor warriors let out a piercing shriek and lunged straight at them, its serrated blade raised high. Isaac reacted on instinct. He yanked hard against the organic bonds holding him. The material stretched, then snapped. In one fluid motion, he grabbed the fallen warrior's blade and swung it upward. The enemy alien let out a choked hiss as the blade sliced through its chest, spraying thick green blood across the chamber floor. It collapsed in a twitching heap. Isaac stood over the body, breathing hard. The weapon in his hands was alien, but in that moment, it felt no different from a combat knife. Vashera watched him, and for the first time, he saw something like admiration in her glowing eyes. Good, she said. Now fight. The escape from the chamber. The traitors charge, their blades gleaming under the hive's pulsing lights. Isaac didn't think. He moved. He ducked under one warrior's wild swing. then drove his stolen blade deep into its throat. The creature spasmed, clawing at its own neck before collapsing. Voshera fought beside him, her 4 powerful arms moving in a deadly blur, slicing through her enemies like a dancer weaving through a battlefield. The air was filled with screeches, the clash of weapons, the wet sound of exoskeletons breaking. More enemy warriors flooded in. Too many. Isaac knew they couldn't hold the chamber much longer. Voshera must have thought the same. She let out a strange, high-pitched sound, and the walls of the hive shifted in response. Behind them, a section of the chamber collapsed inward, revealing a hidden tunnel leading deeper underground. "This way," she ordered. Isaac hesitated for only a second before following her. He didn't trust her, but right now, the alternative was death. Into the depths. The tunnel was dark, but alive. The walls pulsed, the air thick with heat and strange whispers that Isaac realized weren't sounds at all. They were voices. Not spoken words, but feelings. The hive was alive. Voshera seemed to sense his unease. "The hive mind is weak," she said, almost to herself. "Too many broken minds. Too many lost warriors." Isaac didn't respond. He could still hear screams from above. The battle raged on. But something felt wrong. "Who are they?" he finally asked. "Who are the traitors?" Voshera's mandibles tightened. "Zycari who refused to evolve," she said. "They see my bond with you as a betrayal. They want the old ways, a war with humanity, not unity." Isaac swallowed hard. This wasn't just a civil war. It was a war about humans. He didn't know how to feel about that. The enemy's true plan. As they moved deeper, the tunnel widened into another chamber, a hidden command center, filled with holographic projections of the planet, space, and the battle unfolding above. Isaac's eyes widened as he took in the images. The traitors weren't just attacking the hive. They were sending signals to space, to a Zycari fleet, a fleet large enough to invade Earth. Isaac turned to Voshera, his voice sharp. "You didn't tell me they had a fleet." The Queen's expression darkened. "I did not know," she admitted. "This is worse than I feared." Isaac stared at the glowing images, his fists tightening. This wasn't just an alien civil war anymore. This was a countdown to an invasion. The impossible choice. The screens flickered, showing Earth's colonies in nearby star systems. The Zycari fleet was already moving. If the traitors won, they wouldn't just kill Voshera. They wouldn't just destroy the hive. They would take their full force to humanity. Isaac felt his stomach drop. He had a choice to make. Side with humanity. Escape. Warn Earth. Let the Zycari destroy each other. Side with Voshera. Help her defeat the traitors. Stop the invasion before it happens. Isaac gritted his teeth. His instincts screamed not to trust an alien queen who had admitted to experimenting on his species. But if he left, the war would come. Millions, no, billions, would die. He looked at Voshera. She stared back, waiting. No tricks, no lies, just a single question in her glowing eyes. Would he fight? Isaac exhaled sharply. "Fine," he said, "but if you betray me." Voshera's mandibles shifted into a small, almost smile. "I won't," she said. Isaac wasn't sure if he believed her, but he knew one thing. War was coming, and he had just chosen a side. Captain Isaac Carter had made his choice. He was standing beside an alien queen, Voshera, in the heart of a dying hive, preparing to fight against a traitorous faction of Zycari warriors. Above them, the hive shook violently as the battle raged on. The enemy was closing in. Isaac still wasn't sure if he trusted Voshera. Hell, he wasn't even sure if he trusted himself for making this decision. But there was no time for regrets. If the traitors won, their fleet would invade Earth. Isaac tightened his grip on the alien blade in his hands. "What's our next move?" he asked. Voshera's glowing violet eyes flickered with intensity. We must reach the core chamber. If I can regain control of the hive mind, we can still stop them. Isaac frowned. And if we fail? The queen's mandibles tightened. Then Earth will burn. Isaac exhaled sharply. No pressure, right? The journey through the hive. Vashera led him through a series of dark, pulsating tunnels. The walls were alive, shifting and breathing, whispering in a language Isaac could almost understand but not quite. It was unsettling, like walking inside the belly of a beast. As they moved, Isaac couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Too quiet. He tensed, gripping his blade tighter. "Something's not right," he muttered. "Where are your warriors?" Vashera slowed, her antennae twitching. "They should be here," she said, her voice laced with suspicion. Then, the walls exploded. A dozen traitor warriors burst from the shadows, their blades gleaming, their red eyes filled with murderous intent. Isaac barely had time to react before one of them lunged. He dodged left, swinging his blade up, catching the enemy across the chest. Green blood splattered against the living walls. Another came from behind. Isaac twisted, barely avoiding the strike. Vashera moved like lightning, her forearms slicing through the enemy like a dancer of death. For a moment, it seemed like they had the upper hand. Then, a piercing shriek filled the air. Vashera froze, and Isaac saw why. Emerging from the darkness was another Zycari warrior, but this one was different. Larger, stronger, and wearing the armor of a queen's guardian. Isaac saw the shock in Vashera's expression. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." The massive warrior stepped forward, its mandibles curling into something like a smile. "You were always too weak, sister." Isaac's blood ran cold. This wasn't just any traitor. This was Vashera's own kin. The betrayal. Isaac felt his grip tighten on the blade. "You know him." Vashera's voice was low, filled with barely controlled fury. "His name is Carix, my brother." Carix let out a low, rumbling laugh. "You shame our ancestors with this experiment." His red eyes shifted to Isaac. A bond with a human. Disgusting. Isaac clenched his jaw. "Yeah, you're the ones planning to exterminate my species." Carix took a slow step forward. "Not exterminate. Dominate. Humanity will kneel before the Zycari." Vashera snarled. "You're a fool, Carix. If we continue on this path, our species will die." Her brother hissed, raising his blade. "Then let the weak perish." And with that, he charged. The fight for survival. Carix was fast, too fast. Isaac barely had time to block as the traitorous prince swung his massive blade, knocking him backward. He hit the hive wall hard, pain exploding in his ribs. Vashera met her brother head-on. The two clashed with deadly precision, their blades moving in a blur of steel and chitin. The air trembled with the force of their battle. Isaac pushed himself up, trying to shake off the dizziness. This wasn't a fight he could win alone. He looked around, searching for something, anything. Then he saw it. A hive wall behind Carix was weak, damaged from the earlier explosions. Isaac's mind raced. Maybe he couldn't beat Carix in a fair fight, but he didn't need to. He grabbed a fallen enemy's weapon, a pulse grenade, and hurled it at the weakened wall. Boom! The explosion ripped through the chamber, sending Carix stumbling forward. That was all Vashera needed. She drove her blade through her brother's chest. Carix let out a guttural sound, his red eyes flickering with shock. "You would betray me," he gasped. Vashera's voice was cold as steel. "You betrayed us first." With a final twist of her blade, Carix collapsed. The chamber fell silent. The escape. Vashera turned to Isaac. "We don't have much time. The fleet is still coming." Isaac nodded, breathing heavily. "Then we stop them." Vashera gestured to a hidden panel on the wall. The organic material shifted, revealing a transport pod. Isaac frowned. Where does this lead? Voshera stepped inside. To the command center. If we take control of the fleet's signals, we can shut them down before they reach Earth. Isaac exhaled sharply. It was risky. But right now, it was their best shot. He stepped into the pod. As the doors sealed, he looked at Voshera. You sure you can do this? She met his gaze. I have to. The pod launched, sending them hurtling through the hive at breakneck speed. Isaac gritted his teeth. This war wasn't over yet. The transport pod shot through the hive's tunnels, moving at blinding speed. Captain Isaac Carter gripped the side rails, his body tense. Beside him, Voshera, the Zycari queen, stood tall, her glowing violet eyes locked forward. They had one chance, one final shot to stop the invasion fleet before it reached Earth. If they failed, billions would die. The pod jerked violently as it reached its destination, a massive underground command center, hidden deep within the hive. The doors hissed open. Isaac stepped out, his pulse racing. The room was huge, lined with holographic displays showing the Zycari fleet in orbit, preparing for their assault. And at the center of it all was a throne-like structure, pulsing with energy. The hive mind's control seat. Isaac exhaled sharply. That's it. If you take control, you can override the fleet's orders, right? Voshera nodded. Yes, but they won't let me do it easily. Isaac was about to ask who they were. Then, the doors on the far side of the chamber burst open. The enemy had arrived. The last defenders of the old way. A wave of traitorous Zycari warriors flooded in, their red eyes burning with fury. Isaac counted at least 20. Too many. At the front stood a towering figure, larger than all the others. His chitinous armor was plated in deep crimson, and his blades dripped with the green blood of those he had slain. Isaac could tell this was their leader. The warrior's mandibles clicked in amusement. Foolish queen, he rumbled. You think you can still win? Voshera straightened. I do not think. I know. The warrior laughed. Then die with your pet human. He raised his arm, and the traitors charged. The battle begins. Isaac moved on instinct. One warrior lunged at him, blade flashing. Isaac twisted just in time, slashing his stolen Zycari blade across the warrior's neck. Green blood sprayed, and the alien collapsed. Another attacked from the side. Isaac barely dodged in time, the enemy's blade tearing through his shoulder armor. Pain exploded through his body. But he gritted his teeth and kept moving. Voshera fought like a storm, her 4 arms slicing through enemies in a deadly blur. She was fast, precise. But even she was getting overwhelmed. For every enemy they killed, 2 more took their place. Isaac's breathing was ragged. There were too many. We can't win this. Then he saw it. The control seat. It was unguarded. If Voshera could reach it, she could end this. Isaac made his choice. The last stand. Voshera, he shouted. Go, I'll hold them off. The queen hesitated. You will die. Isaac grinned despite the pain. Probably, but I'm not letting Earth burn. Voshera met his gaze, then nodded once, and ran. Isaac turned to the enemy, gripping his blade tightly. The massive traitor leader stepped forward, his crimson armor gleaming. You are brave, human, he said, but bravery will not save you. Isaac smirked, raising his blade. Guess we'll find out. Then the warrior charge. The duel. Isaac barely had time to block as the enemy's blade slammed down, sending a shockwave through his arms. The force nearly knocked him off his feet. Isaac rolled away just in time, feeling the enemy's next strike slice through the air where his head had been seconds ago. He fought back, slashing at the alien's side. But the blade barely made a scratch. Damn. His armor's too strong. The enemy lunged again. Isaac ducked, barely avoiding the killing blow. He needed to find a weakness. Fast. Then he saw it. The alien's neck plates shifted slightly whenever he moved. A weak spot. Isaac took a deep breath. This was his only chance. The enemy raised his blade for the final strike. Isaac dropped to the ground, slid beneath him, and drove his blade up into the soft flesh of the traitor's neck. The alien let out a horrible screech, his body convulsing. Isaac twisted the blade hard, ripping through vital tissue. The traitor collapsed, dead. Isaac staggered back, breathing heavily. Victory or death. He turned to see Vashera reaching the control seat. She slammed her hands onto the interface, her body glowing with hive mind energy. The entire room pulsed with power. Isaac watched as the holograms of the enemy fleet flickered, then stopped moving. Vashera was rewriting their orders. The traitorous fleet was shutting down. Isaac let out a shaky breath. They had won. The aftermath. The remaining traitors screamed in agony as the hive mind rejected them. Their bodies convulsed, their connection severed. Within seconds, it was over. Vashera turned to Isaac, her expression unreadable. It is done. Isaac sank to his knees, exhausted. Good, because I'm about 2 seconds from passing out. The Queen approached him, her voice softer now. You fought well, Isaac Carter. Without you, my people would be lost. Your people would be lost. Isaac let out a small, tired laugh. Guess that means you owe me one. Vashera tilted her head. Perhaps, or perhaps this is the beginning of something greater. Isaac met her gaze. For the first time, he believed her. The end, or the beginning. The invasion was stopped. The traitors were defeated. But the future of the Zycari and humanity was still unwritten. And Isaac Carter had just played a role in shaping it. The war was over. The traitors were dead. The Zycari invasion fleet had been shut down, their warships now drifting lifelessly in orbit. Earth was safe. But Captain Isaac Carter knew that victory was only the beginning. He stood beside Vashera, the new queen of the Zycari, in the heart of the hive's command chamber. The air was still thick with the scent of battle, but for the first time in days, there was silence. Isaac exhaled slowly, running a hand through his bloodied hair. So, what now? Vashera's glowing violet eyes studied the holograms before her, displaying the vast Zycari fleet. Now we rebuild. Isaac let out a dry chuckle. Rebuild? Your people just tried to wipe out mine. The Queen's mandibles twitched, a hint of amusement in her alien expression. And you fought to save mine, despite everything. Isaac's smirk faded. She wasn't wrong. They had started as enemies, then became reluctant allies. Now, he wasn't sure. But one thing was clear. The universe would never be the same again. Earth's reaction. The first transmissions came in from Earth within hours. Isaac stood on the bridge of a Zycari warship, watching as the transmission from General Briggs, one of Earth's top military leaders, appeared on the holoscreen. Briggs' face was hard, unreadable. Captain Carter, you're alive. Isaac smirked. Yeah, I get that a lot. The general didn't smile. Explain what the hell is going on up there. Isaac took a breath. Long story short, the invasion was stopped. But there's more to this than we thought. The Zycari aren't just some mindless alien horde. They were being controlled, manipulated by a faction that no longer exists. Briggs' eyes narrowed. And you trust them? Isaac glanced at Vashera. She stood calmly, watching the exchange but saying nothing. Isaac turned back to Briggs. I trust that killing them all won't make us any safer. The general was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. We'll need proof. Bring the Queen to Earth. The Council will decide what happens next. Isaac hesitated. That's not gonna be easy. People just watch the Zycari kill millions. They're gonna want blood. Briggs' voice was cold. Then you'd better convince them otherwise. The transmission cut out. Isaac let out a slow breath. This was going to be harder than he thought. A dangerous journey. Bringing Vashera to Earth wasn't just risky. It was a death sentence if things went wrong. Isaac knew it. Shara knew it. But it had to be done. A small transport ship was prepared, not a Zycari warship, not a human military vessel, just a neutral diplomatic craft. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, the sensors flared with warning signals. Isaac looked at the radar. Earth's defense fleet was locked onto them. Shara noticed his tension. Your people do not trust easily. Isaac smirked. They call that human survival instinct. She tilted her head. Perhaps, but survival should not always come at the cost of understanding. Isaac didn't reply. He wasn't sure he had an answer for that. The meeting with the council. The moment they landed, they were surrounded by armed soldiers. Shara did not react, but Isaac could tell she was ready to fight if needed. They were escorted into a massive underground bunker, where the United Earth Council waited. 12 of the most powerful leaders on Earth sat at a long metallic table, their eyes locked onto Shara like she was a loaded weapon. The room was tense. Finally, the council leader, an older woman named Director Celine Voss, spoke. Captain Carter, you've put us in a difficult position. Isaac leaned forward. I saved the planet. You're welcome. Celine's eyes narrowed. And now you bring the enemy queen to Earth, expecting us to trust her. Before Isaac could respond, Shara spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm, firm, and strangely regal. I do not expect your trust. Trust is earned, not given. The council members exchanged glances. Shara continued. I have seen what war does. I have lost my people. You have lost yours. But I do not come here to beg for mercy. I come here with an offer. Celine leaned forward. What kind of offer? Shara's violet eyes glowed faintly. A future. Together. A fragile alliance. The negotiations lasted for hours. Many on the council wanted blood. They demanded the Zycari pay for their crimes. But others saw the truth. Earth had only survived because of Shara's help. In the end, an agreement was made. The Zycari would not be enemies of Earth, but they would not be allies yet either. Instead, a neutral zone was created, where humans and Zycari could rebuild, learn, and decide what came next. It was not peace, not yet, but it was a start. Isaac's choice. As the days passed, Isaac realized something. He had fought wars, seen death, lost friends. But this was the hard part, building something new. One evening, as he stood on the balcony of a diplomatic station, watching the stars, Shara joined him. For a while, they stood in silence. Then she asked, "And what of you, Isaac Carter? Where will you go now?" Isaac exhaled. "I don't know." She studied him. "You are not just a soldier anymore. You helped change the fate of 2 species." Isaac smirked. "That's a fancy way of saying I have no idea what I'm doing." Shara let out a sound, a soft chittering laugh. "None of us do. That is the nature of a new beginning." Isaac nodded, thinking. The war was over, but the real fight, the fight for a future, had just begun. And for the first time, in a long time, he was ready for it. The end, for now.